You see, there's a lot of big things that are happening in the Bitcoin space in particular, and that's going to be good for the entire cryptocurrency space. And some of these stories do overlap a bit with crypto more broadly, but what's good for Bitcoin tends to be good for everything else. Bitcoin ETFs are going to bring in billions of new money into the crypto space. Yeah, it's going to enter into Bitcoin, but as we've seen over time and through reports, money doesn't tend to stay exclusively in Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin maximalists, others might argue, well, it should only be in Bitcoin forever, nothing else, everything else is a scam. Okay. Look, the reality is the majority of people, they want bigger gains because they see what goes on in crypto. They see people making the 10, 20, 50, 100x gains, and they're not that rare. People make big money all the time in this market, and people want a piece of that pie. Now, look, not everybody can get a piece of that pie because if you're talking about like low cap coins and stuff like that, you can't be a millionaire or a billionaire and buy $100 million worth of some tiny low cap altcoin, but you can buy $100 million worth of Bitcoin. The kind of people who are buying does change a little bit when you start getting into bigger numbers. But if we talk about most people see the big gains elsewhere. But still, a lot of money is going to flow into Bitcoin specifically, and for a few, I think, very clear reasons here. I think the stage is set massively for Bitcoin. So let's just go over a few of the big things that I see happening in the space right now that makes me think the stage is set perfectly for crazy times in 2024. First is that the SEC is getting their butts handed to them right now. I mean, hey, I know they won some sort of case the other day. Well, they didn't win. They got basically some NFT project to acquiesce and not fight them in court. They said the NFT project even said it's going to be cheaper for us just to give them a few $1,000,000 to go away instead of go and spend a lot of time and energy of our company to actually fight them in court, which is what most people do. But the Ripple team did not take that route. They spent like $100 million or whatever in legal fees fighting the SEC in court, a waste of everybody's time and money, and they won. That XRP ruling is good for the entire altcoin and the entire crypto space. Then we had the Grayscale case where, again, the SEC lost. That's good for the potential for Bitcoin ETFs, and that's good for the potential of the whole space because that could bring in estimated $30 billion of new money into the market. And $30 billion of buy pressure sends the price of Bitcoin a lot higher. Let's just say that. And then, of course, that all sets the stage for Coinbase, which is also being sued by the SEC, to basically slam a home run win for their case because everything the SEC has been arguing has basically already been disproven. And Uniswap, they won a case the other day where somebody was trying to sue them because they bought some shit coin on Uniswap and they lost money. So Uniswap's responsible for that. How dare you allow me to come and use your decentralized protocol and then I lose money? Somebody's got to be to blame. Not me. Not me. I'm not to blame. The person who clicked the button. It's the guys who wrote the code. The judge disagreed. In fact, the judge slapped it down. And that same judge is the person who's going to be presiding over the Coinbase case. So we have lots of legal precedent that'll make the Coinbase case a likely win. So that's all putting the wind into the sails of the cryptocurrency market. The Bitcoin ETFs, of course, themselves, as discussed, bringing potentially $30 billion into the market. It's an if. That's not an if question. It's a when question. That's according to insiders at Fidelity and BlackRock, who seem to know what they're talking about and have been releasing it to people like Mike Novogratz saying, the Bitcoin ETF's coming. It's real. It's happening this time. Then there's Hong Kong. And I know the Hong Kong thing's been a little bit slow. A recap for you. Hong Kong finally passing sweeping cryptocurrency legislation, allowing for Bitcoin ETF products, allowing for retail investors to buy Bitcoin and a range of other cryptocurrencies. That opens up massively to mainland money that might want to come in and get access to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies because it's not that complicated to get money, especially for rich people from the mainland to Hong Kong, or for people to come over with suitcases full of cash and go to brick and mortar dealers, because there are brick and mortar Bitcoin dealers in Hong Kong, because people do come from the mainland with bags of cash wanting to buy Bitcoin and then take it back into China and sell it on the gray market. And this whole Hong Kong thing, you have to realize it's happened with Beijing's approval. So Beijing looked and said, yeah, we need to get exposure to this and we can keep stifling it in the mainland because we want to protect our citizens. But in Hong Kong, we'll let them be a bit more adventurous. We'll get a little slice of that pie because we want a slice of that pie. So China getting back into crypto, that brings lots of potential liquidity into the markets. When we talk about the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF and stuff, that's really just US money, US TradFi money, 30 billion bucks. China's money, China's got a lot of cash. They can bring a lot of cheddar to the cheese plate, so to speak. Then there's the money printing and the interest rate situation. China right now, at the threat of going into deflation, they may have to print hard. They've already been doing more easing. They did easing a few times already. They're probably going to do a lot more easing soon. That means big money printing. That means big injections of cash into the Chinese economy to try and kick-start the engine of China once again. The USA is probably going to have to print too at some point. Now, look, of course, the inflation problem does need to be tamed to the Fed's liking. We're getting pretty close to that situation, assuming we don't have a new massive spike in inflation. But once we see inflation under control, interest rates start getting cut. That again potentially puts those wind back in the sails of the market. And that lets them start printing money again because they love printing money. And honestly, they have to print money because the US government's broke. They spend $2 trillion too much every year, more than they have. They're $33 trillion in debt. The only way out of that mess is to print more money. They're addicted to printing money. They're freaking addicts, man. They're out there just every day shooting up more liquidity because the system demands it. The banks demand it. The markets demand it. And the Fed at some point's got to deliver on it. They can't keep the liquidity taps turned off forever because then America has to go through a brutal withdrawal symptom phase, and the economy is not really ready for that with that much debt on board. They need to print, so they will print probably next year. And of course, in the background of all that, there's the increasing threat of de-dollarization, which I know a lot of people get really excited about, oh, it's going to happen overnight or it's never going to happen. Very strong opinions on either side of the situation. But you just have to look at all the news stories that have happened this year. There are increasing moves for countries, including major producers like Saudi Arabia of oil, to move away from complete dollar dominance. Not to say they're totally ditching the dollar, although there has been calls, for example, from Brazil's president, Lula da Silva, to say, especially between the BRICS members, we don't need the dollar. Let's just ditch it. We don't need to use it, which that's a big loss of significance for the dollar as reserve currency status in the world. When other countries start catching on to that, it's problematic. So again, this is a threat to the dollar, but a potential boost for Bitcoin. Then we see, of course, nations mining Bitcoin. We talked about the Oman story the other day. They're investing like $1 billion into mining Bitcoin. A country's mining Bitcoin officially at the government level. We see things like Russia and their moves towards potentially also running state-run Bitcoin mines, but also allowing for Bitcoin to be used in international trade. It's pretty damn interesting to see some of these players that are getting involved in the Bitcoin game globally. We also, of course, have stuff like the legal tender in El Salvador. That's great. And if we see other countries follow along, that's also really exciting. We've seen some cities and some regions and places like Brazil that have allowed it for international payments, but that's a slow developing story. The legal tender thing's quite contentious, obviously, because governments want the control of the money. El Salvador didn't have control of their money, so it made sense to go down the Bitcoin route. And then at least they're not beholden to what the Fed does because they were using US dollars. They still do use US dollars, but at least now they can have an alternative based on mathematics and sanity versus the craziness that goes on at the Fed. Then, of course, there's all the big adoption stories, which we've been covering here on the channel recently. The X app potentially going to bring 400 million users into Bitcoin. They just got their cryptocurrency license the other day. That's coming. That's happening. PayPal and the PYUSD going to on-ramp 400 million people into the crypto space. And what do people want to do with their stable coins when the markets start trending? They want to buy stuff. What do they want to buy? Often Bitcoin and other cryptos. When what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Mercado Libre, 200 million people being onboarded to USDC across Latin America. Again, that provides a new fiat on and off ramp. That provides the potential for more money to come into the cryptocurrency markets. Because once speculation starts running rampant, people with all the stable coins go, oh, I can buy some Bitcoin. And they throw money into Bitcoin. Oh, I can buy some Solana. They throw some money into Solana. That's how it works. On-chain activity, of course, remains super high during this period. Now, that's right across the blockchain space, meaning that this bear market that we've gone through has been so unlike the previous bear markets. We've almost 10x'd our user base since the previous bear market. There's 120 million on-chain accounts in the last month that have been used. Huge numbers here. And yeah, okay, some of that's probably people farming airdrops, but still, there's been a definitive increase in people buying and putting Bitcoin in cold wallets, playing around on Ethereum, playing around on Ethereum layer 2s. And I know it feels kind of quiet because the herd's not here yet, but there are people out there just quietly using cryptocurrencies, blockchains, playing games, using DeFi, whatever it might be, outside of the English-speaking communities as well. I don't see what's happening in French crypto space or in Korean or Japanese or Filipino crypto space. But those users are coming from somewhere. And we're seeing growth in global adoption. We're seeing places like Argentina, for example, really look to crypto as a way to, well, save themselves, to get into a lifeboat because their own currency's crap. Bitcoin on exchanges continues to go down. We're at like a 5-year low. In fact, the amount of Bitcoin on exchanges hasn't been this low since the 2017 bull market peak, which is crazy. And it's only continuing to go down. 60 million millionaires in the world. It's a lot of people. A lot of people with $1 million or more net worth. Now, right now, those 60 million people, if you only have $1 million spending $25,000 on one Bitcoin, if you assume your net worth's tied up in your house and some stocks and whatever else, that's a lot of money for a lot of people. Even the millionaires who are single-digit millionaires have $1 or $2 million. Buying one Bitcoin might be a bit of a big ask for some of those people. When you start to get up to people with a few $1 million or more, yeah, you buy a Bitcoin, that's fine. So let's say that qualifies 45 million of the millionaires. Well, there's only 2 million Bitcoin on exchanges. I'm not exactly, the super mathematician of the world here, but I'm pretty sure that 45 million millionaires cannot all have one Bitcoin if there's only 2 million Bitcoin for sale. Of course, they can't all have one Bitcoin. There's only 21 million maximum supply, but only 2 million left on exchanges, which is pretty interesting if you ask me. That money's going to come, and the Bitcoin halving is getting closer every 10 minutes when we have a new block of Bitcoin. April next year, Bitcoin halving. Can you hold on till then? Can you make it? Can you survive? Can you last? Can you not get chopped up in 2023 chasing scams? Can you be patient enough for the Bitcoin halving to happen, for the news cycle to take off? Because again, if you're here now and you're looking forward and you can maintain until late 2024, mid 2025, you're probably going to be okay. Look, at the end of the day, you either see the big picture of what's going on in this market or you don't. And I think the people who don't, they're the ones who come in and they buy the next bull market top and they sell the next bear market bottom, registering massive losses. Packing up, going away for 4 years until the next time they come and do it again. But if you do see the big picture, then your chance of securing your financial freedom, I think, remains relatively high in this market.